Hi all, this is Austin with Witness for Peace. This is the first of several video posts to come reporting on the international verification mission that the Colombia team took part of this past week. So between February 9th and 14th, the Colombia team went to the Uraba region in Chocó province as part of a commission along with 200 other people to document the threats facing Afro-descendant and indigenous communities in that area. So we visited humanitarian zones in the Colombian Northwest and met with community leaders to learn about the issues that they're facing. The most inspiring part of this trip to me was just meeting with these people and learning about just hearing their stories. You know, I heard several people say over and over again, "Somos resistentes," or "We are resistors of the conflict." It was very touching to see how these people were so resilient to the conflict and determined to survive and just to provide a better future and an education to their children in spite of the hardships and the violence they've been experiencing for so long. These resistors started establishing the first humanitarian zones in Colombia early in last decade, and a humanitarian zone is a delineated area in which neither legal nor illegal armed actors are allowed to enter. So residents remain neutral and have no ties to paramilitaries, the military, or to guerrillas. And in 2005, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which is a body of the Organization of American States, granted them these zones special protections, including constant vigilance by state forces outside of these zones. And we at Witness felt it was very important to walk in solidarity with these communities and other organizations that went on the trip, especially given our country's unique and long-standing ties to the Colombian government. Several other U.S. citizens flew in from the United States just to take part in this mission, and they shared with us why they felt it was important for them to be here.
Experiences. I think the United States government has a strong relationship with the Colombian government, and the idea of that relationship is based on a concept that the U.S. is helping to strengthen Colombia and make it a safer place. And by making Colombia a safer place, all of the Americas become safer. I think the main way in which the U.S. government does that is through the ideas of military and police security. So they tend to do lots of military training, dealing with the police. And I think that when you're on the ground here, when you're with the context, you hear from the people, this does not make it a more secure place for them. It doesn't make it a better place for them. And so I think as a U.S. citizen whose government is, funding a lot of the military security projects within this context, especially within the drug war, that it's important that I understand what's the impact of my tax dollars and how they're spent by coming and listening to the people directly, hearing of their experiences, and then that's something that I can take back and advocate when I'm back in the United States with my own government.
So that was a really interesting part of our experience here, and I think that it's so important to come here as a U.S. citizen and to see it from the eyes of a U.S. citizen, because those bananas, a lot of them are being exported to the United States. That palm oil is coming to us in a whole wide variety of products, from our shampoo to oils that we cook with to all sorts of things. So it's very significant to us as the main market for a lot of these products to identify the ways that our own actions are having an impact here in Colombia, and how changing our actions would also have a real impact in these areas in supporting the land rights of the people right here in these communities. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, a large part of my interests actually began because of seeing interconnections, ideas around diaspora, in this case diaspora in the African diaspora in the Americas, people of African descent in the Americas, and the whole land question, which was an issue at the turn of the 20th century for African Americans up until the 1970s, or even contemporary in terms of black farmers. But as many people know, after slavery, there was in the U.S. there was a demands for 40 acres and a mule, and then there was a reaction against that. And then there was a great deal of violence surrounding that in terms of of maintaining or keeping black people on the land to work as tenant farmers. And it's interesting because the same processes that are involved in, for example, some of the issues that we've heard about collective land titles and the ways in which parts of the population, Afro-descendant populations here are negotiating with agribusiness and ending up becoming tenant farmers and in debt, all the same kinds of processes. And then one could also think about the Ku Klux Klan, right, as a kind of arm of both the large landowners that actually began to negotiate with big agriculture in the New South. It was called the New South, right? And we kind of see, although different, right, similar kinds of processes, right, of disconnecting black people from their land.